I decided to do a quiet scene from Venice with a lot of trees, bridge, and not a real sunny day, but you know, there is some sunlight hitting this. Now, one of the things I want to mention, when you do stuff like this bridge, which is right basically here, that bridge is where most of your time is going to come in, because there's a lot of things going on that bridge. So that's where literally a lot of our time is going to come in. I did some real quick scribbles with a pencil, and I think I can make that work. There's a few little marks, indications I made up here, but I'm going, it's just 30 by 24. It's a piece of hardboard that I gessoed, and then I threw an acrylic wash on it this morning. It's got a little bit of a coarse surface. Listen, so you can hear a little bit of a coarse surface. What that basically means is, in the beginning, I really need to get a lot of medium going. So I'm going to take a little bit of terp and a little bit of oil together, and I'm going to mix up a nice dark brown, green, and blue together. A little too much brown. And I want to get this big mass in at the top. So again, green, brown, and blue. And if it leans any direction at all, it's going to be just a dark. But if it leans any direction at all, it's going to lean a little bit towards the green. Let me see what this does. Okay, it's a little bit browner than I wanted. And I can tell right now the coarseness of the board is really, it's quite absorbent. So I really need to put that paint down.
I'm just going to adjust this a little bit. Okay.
All right. And from that, we're just gonna, I'm gonna use this little gesso brush because I gotta save time. And that's literally what this does. It just allows me to get stuff on there very quickly. You can see how absorbent it is. It's taking the paint out of that right away, which is good. I mean, in a way that it means it's going to set up a little faster, which is absolutely fine for me. I mean, I would rather have it set up and kind of dry out so I can paint over it a little bit. So we're going to just constantly get this nice dark, and I'm just constantly picking up the brown and the green and a little bit of blue. Just continually picking more of that up, bringing a little bit of oil and terp into it so it'll flow better, so I can get it down without having to fight it. So we're going to keep coming up. There's a little balcony over here. We're going to kind of leave that alone. So somewhere about in here. And if I'm going to make a mistake, again, I'm approaching this much the same as I would if I was painting a location. So I have no idea why I decided to do it this big. Just figured I had a board and it looked like it would work. And so that's kind of how I make decisions sometimes. And because there's so much foliage, a lot of abstract foliage. So we've got, this is a beautiful combination of abstraction and real, and I shouldn't say real because everything to a degree is real. Abstraction and realism. So we really want to get this mass in as fast as you can. And this brush is wonderful for that. This is a sloppy old gesso brush. A number 12 rosemary works really well too. This is just a little sloppier. And not that I'm in love with sloppy, but truthfully, I prefer to be quite free form and energetic in the beginning. And then as I approach completion, I worry about where I want my refinement. Well, right there. This is kind of that movement of this where the green tree is. That actually, One thing about foliage, everybody, most people think of foliage as green. Generally, there are greens in foliage, not a lot and not intense. And so one of the things I always recommend to people when painting foliage and trees and things of that nature is not to start too bright. I know a lot of students that I've had in the past want to get that kind of obvious green in there, sneak up on it. You know, you'll get to it, but you don't have to start there. You can start a lot more muted, giving yourself this, for example, everything I just got through saying helps you keep your painting in harmony, color harmony. Now the value is pretty close to the sky. Sky's going to be a little lighter than that. I can tell right now. And it's really absorbing the paint. So those of you that are, I can envision a lot of people that are doing this painting on this kind of surface right now, complaining about the surface. I kind of like it, but then again, for years I worked in acrylics, so I kind of like it when it sets up a little fast. Just because it gives me more latitude when I start doing my painting over it. So I'm going to get all this in, even though there's a lot of different tones in there right now. I don't want to get too picky about it. Now, where else do I see a tone like this? Because that's kind of important. You know, you can save a lot of time by understanding that. So I see it dark right in here, but it's probably a warmer dark. So all I'm going to do is to add a little bit more brown to the same color. And that'll take it into the warm range. And so what we're going to do is right about here, indicate where that bridge goes. Every bit is dark. Every bit is dark. There's a little boat here. Whew. I didn't even see that at the beginning. I've been painting on location where all of a sudden I'll see something that I didn't see as I get into kind of depicting a little bit more accuracy. So I kind of drew this boat in right here. Looks like it takes kind of this space. And then the side of it is a pretty deep shadow, so we can kind of scuff over that a little bit. This comes down, diffuses under here, down at the bottom. Got to worry about that perspective a little bit, so that feels about right. Now, on the other side, look how dark it is down here. Why not get that in now? All these darks, what they do is they start to establish the drawing. You know, much the same as if had a charcoal pencil and you were just kind of laying the whole thing in charcoal. So they really begin to establish some of the drawing. If I look carefully at the bridge itself, the undercarriage before it gets into the actual, I guess you refer to those as pilasters. Before it gets into that, it gets pretty dark. So why not same color?
Gail wants to know if you ever paint in acrylics now.
You know, I do for teaching purposes. I personally don't paint works of my own right now in acrylics, but I do for teaching purposes. And every now and then when I do, and if that's what enough people would like, I all for doing one in acrylics. I did, let's see, I taught a wildlife class last summer, and I did an acrylic of a monkey. I probably have it around here somewhere. But generally, I don't, just because my galleries sell, and the same reason I don't do a lot of gallery work in watercolor. I love it. I love the medium, you guys. Don't, just because I'm not painting in it doesn't mean anything. I love the medium. I'm known in terms of my gallery work as an oil painter. So but I would love to kind of put some watercolors into some of these galleries. And who knows? You never know. I might actually try some. All right. So on this side of the boat, I'm staying with all these darks right now, just because they're really there's a lot of similar darks in here that do not have what we would consider a dominant color. I see on this side of this boat, which is right about here. And then this part of the bridge disappears back into a boat behind. And so why not get all these darks in? Again, they're the drawing, so to speak, of the painting. And if you get them in relatively quickly, you save yourself a heck of a lot of time. Because hopefully you don't have to go back into those and do a lot of modeling, particularly on a quick painting. On a longer painting, you may want to go back in and do some more modeling, but on a quick painting, you basically want the shapes. And that's pretty much what I'm working towards, is the shapes. And if I'm going to do anything, I'm going to paint it a little bit sloppier. You know, I mentioned that concept of being somewhat, because I don't want to be too neat in the beginning. I want to be free. I want to feel very comfortable about literally putting my brush strokes down and just not worrying about them. Hopefully those are going to dry up in there, and I can kind of see some of them already setting up, because I need to come back into it. Now, I'm going to keep looking at this. Where else do I see darks? I see some more darks in here, but they're really diffused. So why not just pull this down a bit? Pull it down. Pull that up. Pull that up. Now, some of the other boats behind, we're getting a little bit specific for a brush this size, but again, I hate to get too precise too early. I want to be accurate without being precise. Whoa, I think I've said that before. I want to be accurate without being precise. And I hope everybody understands what I mean when I make that statement. I want things approximately correct in terms of shape, because that's the drawing is the shape. So let's take that same brush. I'm just going to add terp to it and a little bit of blue and a little bit, and all I'm going to do is a lot of terp. So you see some drips happen here. See that? Sometimes that's kind of cool. I mean, there's a lot of guys that really love drips. I'm not one of them, but I don't. There are places that they work. So I added a little bit more white and blue to that same mixture. I'll come down in here and get some of this going in here. And well, I've got the same thing. A lot of terp in this color, just so you guys know. A lot of terp. A little bit of white, because it has a little bit more of an opacity and a little bit more of an obvious greenish cast. And then I see it over in here, the same kind of tonality. I just want to get coverage. So the lay-in part of this whole painting, and of any painting, the lay-in part is getting everything in. All right? I hope you follow that. Getting everything in. Not finishing everything, just get everything in, so you don't have to worry about it later. Okay, I'm going to take a lot more terp with that. Just going to kind of paint over things. Throw a little radiant blue into that color. A little bit of white, ochre, ultramarine, and umber. And let's go from here. Maybe a little bit more radiant, a little bit more blue, a little bit more terp. Don't worry about mixing the exact color, everybody, because this is gonna take more layers. You just want to be pretty darn close. I call them guesstimates. When you're first painting, that's what you're doing. You're making an offering, so to speak. You're offering, oh, this is where I think it belongs. belongs. And then as you move along, you might go, you know, I wasn't right there. So maybe I need to readjust a little bit. But if you're close, you're halfway home if you're close. So the most important thing is to be close.
Does that top,
What's that?
does that top thing on the easel work to come down? I was just gonna see if I could tilt the,
It might. Well, it works. It just, you got to hit it from behind.
yeah, I know.
It's interesting. We were having a discussion this morning when we were out walking our dog about easels. And I'm due for a new one. Now, as it goes back in here, we get a little bit of an interesting reflection. It's warmer, so I'm going to bring some raw sienna into that color, maybe just a hint of umber. And we're going to put some tones back here. That's probably a little too brown, but again, I'm close.
I was just wondering because there's a little bit of a glare, so I was gonna try to
Oh, you can.
tilt it forward.
Takes a little bit of
Yeah,
adjusting. It's always, when you use darks, you always get a little glare. That's why I try not to put a lot of heavy texture into my darks. So we're kind of setting it up. Now, let's pick this side of the bridge, which is warmer. So what did I do? I picked up a cat orange hue and a little bit. I also kept my brush. So my brush has still got all that dirty color in it. And what that'll do is that'll mix in and keep it from getting too intense. And as I told you, I don't want any of these colors to get too intense at this particular time. So this looks pretty good for the wall. Down towards the base of the wall, it gets maybe a little darker and warmer. So I throw a little alizarin into it, probably too much. Go back and pick up some of the ugly bluish color, mix it back in. Same here. So it's not a clean, bright color. If I need to lighten it up, throw a little ochre. Again, remember what I said? Make a guess. If you're wrong, chances are if you're close, it's not going to matter. And sometimes what you will find is you'll like the color you come up with better. You notice I preface that with the sometimes? And that's because not always. Sometimes you think it's better until you get your painting almost done and you go, nah, it's not better. You're constantly evaluating whatever you guys are painting on, you're evaluating it from beginning to end. So you may feel pretty good about it in the beginning, and then as things go along, you're going, that's not as good as I thought it was. We're kind of getting some, I call it a scuff. You're getting a little scuff on the wall. Same here, from here down, you get a little bit of, and that you're just creating kind of some of the weathered characteristics, which is truthfully to me, as a painter, it's one of the greatest things about Venice is what we might call the patina on the buildings, on the bridges. And what it is, it's age and weather. Old boats have that too. Age and weather. So scuff over, put a stroke down, leave it, scuff over things. If it doesn't look good later on, go back and touch it up. But initially, get it in there. Don't be timid. Don't put a stroke down and go, oh, I think that's wrong. And then put another stroke down and say, well, it's not right either. Put them in there. Put them in there. If you have to be wrong, and then fix it. There's going to come a time when you get into what we might call more of a refinement stage. At that stage, go back and fix it. Nothing wrong with it. And I think when you get into what we might consider more of a finished painting, you'll realize that sometimes some of those things that you might have thought were wrong at an earlier stage actually work pretty well. It's surprising. It really is surprising. It's one of the neat things about landscape is, you know, for painting a portrait, you can't put too much of a foreign color down as in the flesh tone. You might sneak a little bit here and there, but put too much down and it really looks wrong. In a landscape, you can be a little bit freer with some of those color choices and go, you know, I think I'll use a little bit more of this. I think it'll punch up. I know at the end of most of my paintings, I'm talking in the studio, the end of most of those paintings, I'm almost always going back and saying, okay, I'll fix this. I got to knock this back, or I got to pull this out. I got to give it more oomph. So right there, I saw more light. So I love the colors right here. I don't know if I love them, but I like them a lot. Okay, it's got a nice age. Now I want to get this wall, which is a much grayer wall, but similar in value because it doesn't have the warmth of the sun on it. So basically what I do is I mix up kind of the same color with a little more blue. Same color, just a little cooler. Same value. Let's test this right here. 2 blue. Brings more of the orange back in. It's probably a little too orange. That's pretty good. By not cleaning that brush all the time, I'm getting what I would refer to as color harmony. None of the colors are jumping out and look foreign, look like they don't belong. So it's advantageous to do that. It really is. A little darker and a little deeper in color. Down below, 1, 2, and it fades back into this dark. So just kind of push it back into the dark, pull it down. It's got a little red on me, so I'm just added a little bit more ultramarine into that color. Maybe earth tone, maybe that would do it, huh? I'm guessing, just like I asked you guys to do. Yes. If it doesn't work, fix it later. But at least give it a try. Don't be so timid that, you know, everything feels, it shows. Timidity shows in paintings. It really does. And sometimes paintings that might be wrong in terms of maybe a perspective or something, might be a little off, can be really, really wonderful if the stroke is put down with confidence. Now, to kind of mention who might do something like someone like a Vincent van Gogh. Sometimes, you know, he worked his perspective. None of us know how much it could have been intentionally. It could have just been he was rapidly working. But it has a charm. Why? Because he put paint down with authority. He just put it down there. He was not afraid. And I mean, that's why a lot of people admire his work, is for his boldness. Okay, I just want to get enough of kind of the characteristics on that wall as we possibly can. So we get some age, or as I call it, patina character. That's starting to work. Now we've got the white on that wall. So that's white, but I didn't clean that brush. So I'm just right next to it. I'm going to mix all the colors that I've got in the brush into that white. And I'd be darned if I'm not right where I want to be without even mixing a color in there. Let's see. Not bad. We're going to go back. We're going to deepen. Oh, bless you.
Thank you.
We're going to deepen that color just a little bit. And because right back here, notice I'm not going to paint along with it. Oh, I like that color. And I tell you what, I like it enough where I'm going to use it up here. Even maybe a little darker, a little bit more.
Chuck Pyle said, oh, and Craig is such a timid painter.
Well, sometimes I'm wrong. And when I'm wrong, if I have the time, I go back and fix it. But, you know, I use that old line that probably if I had a mentor, it'd probably be, I had three really strong mentors when, as a student. One was Reynold Brown, one was Joe Henniger, and one was Don Putman. And Putt, as we affectionately called him, and any of you that might have known Don would have probably used the same term. Putt always used to say, you may draw better than me, but I'll put paint down. I'll put my marks down with more authority than you. And I to this day, I mean, let me tell you how long ago that was. It was before most of you guys are born. It was in the 60s that he told us that. And I never forgot it. And as an illustrator, it didn't work as well. As a painter, it works beautifully. As an illustrator, you got, you know, the kind of work that I did as an illustrator, you had to be, it wasn't necessarily how authoritative you put your paint down or your stroke down. It was how accuracy counted a little bit more. So, but here we go. So we have the feeling already going on that wall. Over here, it's pretty close, maybe a little bit warmer because it's got that warm light hitting it. So let's kind of put it in there and leave it. That's not the color I wanted, but I'm going to leave it anyway. Add a little bit more warmth to that. And we're going to put in that pipe. That pipe and leave them alone. I don't have time to mess with them, right? All right, let's leave it alone. This is going to take me the most time. So I'm just barely 30 minutes into this thing. I would love to have had everything laid in. I didn't. So what am I doing? I'm going to take green right now. Sap green, yellow ochre. Again, have not cleaned my brush. And a little more, and a little white. And I think I've come close to the color I want. I don't think I have enough warm. I think I want color like that. That looks pretty good, huh? Edges are important if you're painting, particularly if you're painting for a long painting, you know you can go back and fuss and fix edges and do all kinds of fun stuff. But on a plein air piece, which I'm approaching this very much as if I were painting outdoors. On a plein air piece, those initial lay-ins, a lot of those are going to be, they're not just lay-ins, they're really your final works. So you want edges, if you can get them, to be as accurate as you can make them. Because, so I'm going to add a little raw sienna to that color. I just felt like it was going a little too cold on me. I mean, a little too green. And I like mixing up different colors. I think it's really beneficial for foliage rather than painting with the same. So there's the same color. And I'm going to add a little blue to it to darken it a little bit as it comes down into this area. Not enough. Blue, raw sienna. Let's try this. That's better. Again, I'd rather be a little too understated than overstated at this stage. Sounds like I'm sending Morse code.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was going to try to tighten that back there.
So that's why you can tell I'm due for a new easel.
I'm afraid I might collapse everything.
Yeah, we're not gonna.
I could try.
Yeah. Don't worry about it. So I'm playing with different greens constantly. I'm looking at all this, trying to say, okay, is that a little warmer, a little cooler, a little darker, a little lighter? As I see it is how I paint it. Making guesses all the time. This is coming down, coming down. Let's keep it going. That's okay. I pulled it out. Down. There you go. Okay.
There.
Got it. Hopefully that's better for you guys. It's about the same for me.
Oh, pain over me. I'm surprised everything didn't come first.
So I took some brown and blue together, felt like I was getting too light. So maybe I'll throw a little green into that and kind of just push some of those in-between tones that I'm beginning to see. Hope you guys are having fun painting over this. I read an interesting quote on Facebook, and I was telling Anna about this morning. It said, I wonder if after this pandemic, there's going to be a lot more still life paintings.
It actually made it worse, I think, the glare.
Was it better before? You can tilt it back. A little bit lighter. So what do? I've got all these cool yellows. So this time I added a little Naples. It brightened it up a little bit. See it? This in here is probably darker than I want it. Up in here, gonna throw a little blue. Let's try the Naples and blue. That'll give me a different kind of a green. A little bit of a cooler green. Okay, a little bit cooler still. I'm going to throw more blue into it because I see these greens up in here. This kind of foliage must be a different tree, different type of tree with cooler. And you see that a lot in pine trees where you'll get warm needles and you'll get cool. So we want just as much of that feeling. Whoops, see, I pulled it out of the ferrule, and that's how come I ended up with a little lightness. Whoa. What you got there? Is that thought I was having a stroke.
Just trying to see if I could block this light somehow.
And I was playing with lights behind me, just so in case you guys are wondering.
I'm just trying to resolve the glare issue. Not working.
Dark paintings, yeah, it's unfortunate. Dark paintings can be really beautiful. Sometimes they're not the best show off in demonstration. So hopefully you can kind of see what I'm doing. I don't want to get too busy up in here. And over in here, we get a little bit of green. So I'm going to add a lot more green and blue to the color I was just using, even more. It's quite a bit darker, so it doesn't stand out. And bring a little ochre to that color. And where is it? It's kind of here. And we're painting for the kind of the feeling. That's why you just see me kind of flip this brush around kind of crazily. I don't want to get, again, avoid precision. So it doesn't, I don't want this to look too empty. And that's kind of what I'm dealing with right now, is trying to keep it so there is something here. So if I don't get back into it, it'll look okay. I know I can do a lot more in here. There's even some beautiful warms. So I'm going to add some sienna and some umber. We're going to pull some of this warmth. We'll put a few little branches in too, but for right now, I just need to get something in there. More ochre to it. We get a little bit lighter on the edge. Okay, let's leave all that alone for a little bit. And we'll move back into the bridge and the boats. Okay, we're going to go into the bridge. I'm going to take a smaller brush. This is the first time I've switched brushes, so we're about 35 minutes in, and I'm finally switching brushes. We're going to go with this little number 8. I'm just deciding if I should paint the positives. I think I'm going to paint the positives first. Positives meaning a little bit, and it's warm and darks. So I went into the dark I had already been using, this dark down in here, and I added umber. And so here's what we're going to do. We're going to kind of go down, down.
I have a question from
Go ahead.
Sandy. What are your thoughts on whether any of the surface texture of your average canvas should show through in a painting? Should the weave of the canvas be totally covered by paint, or?
Well, I can tell you what I like, but that doesn't mean that's what I've seen them both ways. I've seen them where the canvas comes through. A good, wonderful figurative painter that happens to be one of we're very, very fortunate to have him at our academy, and that is Xiaoming Wu. He has a lot of his canvas come through. I don't like it in my work. I try and avoid it, but it doesn't matter. If the painting looks good, that's up to you. I mean, that's part of a style. If you don't like the weave of a canvas, work on linen. When I do portraits, for example, that's all I work on. I only work on linen. So it becomes a very personal choice. That's why I hate to kind of state it as it has to be this way, it has to be that way. You know, one of my favorite figurative artists, Bert Silverman, did a demonstration one time for us at the Academy of Anna. We actually have the piece. It was a quick demonstration, and a lot of the canvas came through. I mean, he wasn't trying to hide the fact that it was on canvas. So I really believe it's so personal. It's like, what is it that you want? I know these aren't all dark, but I have to unify them in the beginning. And the mixture is just blue and brown, truthfully, in case you're wondering. The faster I paint, the sloppier I'm going to be with laying these things in, because it's tedious. This is tedious stuff. It's the boring stuff. I always think in demonstrations, I kind of hate doing this stuff because it's like watching grass grow or paint dry. But it's one of the necessary things. You can't just ignore it. Let's see, where do I have it? Let's go. Let's do one there, one there, one there. I don't know if I'm getting the right number of these or not. Doesn't matter. What matters is how it looks. And then there's a base. I see him in silhouette at this part. Up in here, they're in light. So let's be as accurate as possible. So over here, all of these are in complete total silhouette where there's no light hitting them. So the shape is where it's at. It's the shape that's important, not the detail, because what we're seeing is the silhouette. Okay, now I just stood back for a second to see how it was feeling. It's okay. One of the things that I do want to do is, I just noticed it. This is what happens when you start painting and you get away from things. All of a sudden you glance back and realize, oh my gosh, I got to get something in here. Some beautiful little greens that happen on this piece of foliage right about here. Okay, and let's go down in here and make it darker. So I'm bouncing back to the foliage again, right? Different colors. It benefits you to lay off an area, then go back to it, remix a new color, and it adds, you can call it character, it adds believability. So, nothing's worse than looking at a painting. Well, I wouldn't say nothing's worse. Looking at a painting where someone's painted trees and they've used the same green and just added white and darker green, lighter green. So it's much nicer to vary those greens, because in nature, that's how it is. I mean, leaves die on a tree, different kinds of trees. As new leaves come up, they have a different color than leaves that are on their way out. So the more of that you can get in, the more interesting it becomes. Like, just standing back here, just briefly, that's starting to work. I'm shocked. I like it. I'm always happy when things work. And you should be too. Not when they work for me, but when they work for you. You know, it's like, wow, that works better than I thought it did. Of course, most of the time you're saying, oh crap, that isn't working well. Little bush sticks out here. And then these are all going to be the beautiful pink little accent flowers over on the left-hand side. Okay, I'm about to use that paper towel up. Bring my next one on. So without messing around too much, let's go back into this area right in here with my small brush. Now, what do I see? I see a really nice ochre, cat orange, maybe a little Naples yellow to lighten it up a little bit more. And Naples yellow is really sticky. I'll be darned. Okay, this feels pretty good right here. That's actually not too bad. It's a little brighter than I might have intended, but I don't mind it. Okay.
I'm trying to scoot this way.
That's where the light is. Now, there's also a nice dark that comes right, it's about here. Over. And then we get the tops of these boats. And the little post that comes down. We get a little bit of something that drags out across that. And it casts a shadow on that. And then we get boats behind that aren't real dark, but they're there. And then we get some darker busyness right about in there, and that's I probably have that over too far, but for right now, I'm leaving it alone. It's a little bit of a green, but I don't want that bright green. It's kind of acidy in the picture, and I don't want that little foreign colors. So I made it a green, but I made it more compatible with the rest of the piece. This orange reflects sound. So it's very important that what you get up here, I also get down below, but maybe not as bright. So I just took a little bit of some of my dirtier colors. And we'll just bring that in. Get a little pulls of reflections right in here, probably from above the boat. The water is disturbed. It's not disturbing, it's disturbed just a little bit. And it's because it's disturbed, this is where you get the not the perfect reflection. Okay, let's keep the small brush for a second. Let's go in with a couple of these boats, and then I'm gonna try this. I'm probably gonna go in here and use this as a finish, but this area is important, very important. So we need to kind of get all that in there. So let's take this boat, which is darker, back here, and go back to my dark colors. So we unify your darks. It's another good thing to kind of keep in mind. Unify, when you have this much dark in your painting, unify it. Don't try and make each dark such a uniquely different color. And we have a little light on that boat. Oh, that's too light. And it's kind of a neutral, maybe a little cool, right about there, and maybe a little lighter as it moves over here. So just a little bit of light there, a little bit on the boat behind, a little cooler. That works. That's good enough. I find I say that a lot when I paint fast, by the way. That's good enough. In other words, you're not going to sit there and fuss forever on it. So at some point, it's got to be good enough. And in actuality, it's probably never good enough for most people's taste. But that's part of the beauty of plein air work, is the interpretation that the artist makes in observing what's happening. Now, it's a little piece of light right about there, and on the top. This is like any of you that have ever painted cars on the street. It's the same thing. You're not, almost don't look at it as a car. Look at it as a variety of tones and shapes. And if you get them in there basically correct, because you don't want to over pronounce them. So if they're basically in there correct, it's going to feel like a car. It's going to feel like a boat. Now I need to add 2 words to that, I hope. Some of these are just buoys hanging off the side of the boat. And they're wonderful little shapes. And if you paint them as little shapes and you get about the size the way you want it, so size, you get it too big, it's not going to fit. Like top of this boat is just a touch of light on it. And back on the boat behind it, a little bit of light there. And then quite a bit of light up there. So what we're doing is we're painting the activity. And I know I've used that word a lot when I've talked about other things. There's activity, and then there are areas of quiet. And sometimes in the background areas, it's really good to think like that, as opposed to always thinking in terms of what it is. I always like to know what it is. It's not crucial. Is it really important that you know what it is? No, I don't think it is. So white and a little bit of Naples. The Naples warms it up. And where we're going to put it, I'm probably putting it in too soon, but I'm going to put it right here. Pick up a little bit of the warmer colors as it goes down. And so we're giving a little bit of flavor as to what's going on there. Looks like there's a lot of little activity right up in here, and I'm not sure specifically what it is. So I'm just going to look at the values and the colors and just indicate it. And again, that's exactly what you do when you're plein air painting, you guys. That's exactly what you do. You do not sit, particularly when you get a lot of involvement. Whether you're painting rocks you can invent a lot. Architecture and architectural elements such as boats, you have to be kind of correct. And particularly as they come closer, like this one. So the left side of it is pretty much in shadow, a little bit warm. And the shadow looks like it's right from here. That's too dark. So I'm going to add a little bit of the light blue to that color. And it feels better. Although it feels like it could be warmer. So see what happens?
What brush are you using?
This is just I think it's a number 6. Number 6, little rosemary filbert. Beat up. I've had it for a long time. I use the heck out of it. An 8 would work just as well, but I didn't like the look of my 8. I've used and abused it a little more than I probably should have. I'm hard on brushes, but at the same time, I'm really good about cleaning them at the end of the session. You know, I always tell people, spend your money on your brushes and lighting in your studio. Those are your 2 big factors if you're studio painting. The surface is important, and the quality and the paint is important. I don't want to diminish that at all. But to me, if you have great paint and you've got a great surface and crummy brushes, you're probably not going to be able to pull off something as satisfying. However, However, there's an exception to that. And the exception is a gentleman who unfortunately passed away way too young, a guy named Ken Oster, who painted with the crummiest brushes. I mean, and he made it work for him. It became part of the way he worked, part of his signature style, is that he was just able to make it work. And I don't recommend it for everybody. I'm not saying it can't work, but it really helps to have good brushes. I guess that's the bottom line. It really does help. And we get the light part of that boat right. So I'm going to take the white, mix just a little bit of the blue as I see it, and maybe a raw sienna along with that blue. So it's kind of a warm, neutral color. Oh, what's that, huh? No, that's okay. It's a little warmer than I wanted. So I threw a little bit more of the light blue into it. And we want it to kind of fade into that color. And then a little bit right there. And then I'm going to bring a little bit more raw sienna into that to warm it up. I'm going to take the top of this boat. I'm painting things kind of in a messed up order today. Not on purpose. Painting things in a messed up order because I'm worried about the bridge. I know that if I get a beautiful bridge done and the rest of the piece it doesn't have enough information that I don't care how great that bridge is going to look, it's not going to work. So I'm trying to get everything else set up so that when I do put that in, it will work. Now, probably didn't bring that dark down enough. Let's go back to get that dark down here. There. I messed up. This is what happens. You start picking around with too small of a brush for too long, which is what I'm doing. Let's get that bowie in, the little light bowie. I think that's important. A little dark right there. Okay, white, Naples yellow. There, darken it by just get a little of the reflection in. Okay, and we'll leave it alone for right now. Let's go into the bridge a little bit. Oh, let's get this boat in. So we got this side of the boat. There's it looks almost like there's a blue tarp on top of it. Like, right, it's really hidden. So there's no way that you're going to be able to see it. And the white side of the boat, which is in pretty deep shadow. It's not, so I'm white, blue, brown. See what that ends up. Man, it's pretty close, but I probably go a touch lighter. It's going a little green on me. Didn't want quite that much green in it. Let's try this. It's a prettier blue. Let's bring some more brown into it. Whoa, too much. Paint real fast, and sometimes I pick up way too much of a color, and it just doesn't work. Just trying to hit it. Nope, I'm still too light. Okay. That feels better. I might be blocking you guys. I hope I'm not.
Yeah, kind of.
Kind of thought I might be.
It's kind of hard to.
There's the boat. And as it goes into shadow, it's definitely darker. More brown, more blue, less white. And it's cool. So if I want to lean my pigment and color, I'm going to lean it cooler. And that's it right there. That goes over about here. There's also a bowie that hangs on it, which so right about here. And so there's a shadow.
Sorry for bouncing the camera around.
And a little bit of light on that bowie. Not as much as on the other side, but it's still pretty bright. You get a little bit of a spot of light right about in there. Okay. And let's take the shadow side and begin to lose it into the shadow. So we almost, it's like what we call lost and found edges at this point. So we're going to take this, and we're just going to begin to lose it right into the shadow right here. The same with the bottom. We hit the bottom and it comes up, and there's a dark division right there, and then it fades into that water, and we're going to mess that up a little bit. Okay. For lack, I can see darks that I need to push the dark here more. Probably a little bit more, a little bit of the cast shadow. Okay. I really don't have time to fuss on that too much, so I'm just kind of leaving it alone. I'm leaving all these little lights that you see at the end for the very end. So I have got about a half an hour left, it looks like. How do I feel about that? Not great. But I want to leave, because this is the fun stuff. I want to definitely get into that fun stuff. I want to have some fun in this. Right now I'm working. So I'm going to take this alizarin crimson, the cad orange hue, and white. And I bet you can all guess what I'm going to do. Because there's only one area in the whole darn painting that's got that kind of color. It's right here. That's not light enough. So simply add more white. Okay. Now, I was too precise when that's why you saw me switch my grip on the brush. It was fun. I actually painted in this area when I was in Venice, one of our summer study abroads with our students, except I painted across this bridge, walked down here a little bit. I painted another area, but I loved it. I crossed that bridge every morning, and I just thought it was so neat. And I've never done a thing with it. This is the first time I've actually done anything with this subject. So a little daring because of the scale. And but what the heck? I like daring. So let's get this kind of brown. And I just took it, mixed the brown back into all those greens I was using. And that I figured would mute it, which it did. And we'll kind of be relatively architectural. That's an architectural type stroke. There's a pipe there. I don't know if I'm going to get the pipe in or not. And it's not all one neat color, so I do want to scuff it up a little bit. There. And there. And then it's got a little bit of a white beam. And if I just take white, mix it kind of right into all those colors, maybe add a little warm to it so it doesn't go too cold on me. And just put that little feeling of white right in there. Leave it alone. I don't want to call too much attention to that. That might be too much right there, actually. So I might want to go back over that later and knock it back. Little piece of balcony sticking up from here. Little piece of architecture. So leave it alone. I want to get into the bridge. Let's get into this bridge. All right. First, let's start with this. You know, I'm starting with the easy parts. I don't know why I'm avoiding. The rest of it scares the heck out of me. I mean, I'll indicate it and it may look okay, but it won't look as refined. I'm kind of setting you up, kind of making my excuses before I do it. But I do want to paint this part of the bridge, which is in more of a shadow area, not dark enough, but I was. Blue, brown, white. Nothing more complex than that. Try it again. That feels better. And I want to let it just disappear. Okay. Blue, brown, white. Whereas it goes up, and we get a little bit of that same color, maybe with a little bit more brown in it, but a little bit of it right there. It's probably more going on, but that's all I'm going to do, primarily because of time. Now, when I got that mixture mixed up, I'm going to take a smaller brush, it's a little tiny one, and I'm going to take that same kind of mixture, and I'm going to look up above. And what do I see? I'm going to lighten that a little bit. We're going to add a little bit of light. Let's see how this works. Yeah, it's just about right, I think. There. The light is coming from the right. I can tell because the bulb part of this, and I'm not sure what they refer to these as. If anybody knows, please pipe up. Chuck, if you're on.
What kind of what did you say?
The little pillars, whatever you want to refer to them as.
No clue.
As soon as someone says, I don't know.
This was from the Castello side, right?
I don't know.
Of Venice, on the other side of San Marco.
This is right near where we stayed.
Yeah, so in the.
I don't know what they call this area.
It's Castello.
Castello?
I think so.
Okay, there you have it, everybody. This area is called Castello.
Or residential. On
Yeah,
the
very residential over
other
here.
side of San Marco.
There's a couple of really wonderful streets here that have just loaded with restaurants, outdoor restaurants. But it's very residential. It's not touristy at all. And I don't know if my buddy Mitch is on, but Mitch was with us, so he might know what the area is.
That's right.
This is kind of a fun area. I mean, it's not an area that we generally stay in, but it was really a nice new find and really quiet.
That was really cool.
Very, very quiet.
Chuck said baluster.
Baluster. I knew Chuck would have it. I figured either Chuck or Steve Gray was going to come through.
Carolyn Rogers knew also.
Carolyn did too?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there you go.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you
And
very
gals.
much. See, this is, you can tell, it's because of the number of them that it's going to take so long. That's what, it's not any other reason than that. So I'm just indicating right now. I'm not even looking to see whether I'm right or wrong. I know at the top of these, they're going to get a little bit of light on them too, right here. Right here. And then it's the negatives that are going to make these things work. The light coming through that negative.
So Sarkis actually lived in the Castello region for 6 months. How lucky. That's awesome.
Oh, you probably know the bridge.
Such a beautiful area.
Very quiet. Great to paint in.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I did several location pieces out here.
Our study abroad students loved it.
Yeah.
Kids riding their bikes, and that was just great.
Venice is it got so many interesting, we've been there several times and I have not run out of interesting places to paint. I haven't even discovered some. I have my favorite places, but it's always fun to discover new ones too. Okay. Let's keep moving. What do you say? All right, I'm going to get this part of the bridge right here. Similar to what I did at the bottom. So what do we want? We want blue, brown, probably, and maybe a little Naples, huh? And let's see what happens if this is going to work. And a little cooler, dark, right as it comes out of the shadows right about there. So there we go. A little bit lighter over here, but boy, that stays way deep in the shadows. So it's quite dark, but it does continue, and you usually see the beginning of it right about, let's see, here and there. And then it disappears. So we're starting to get the right feel. I'm going to paint the negatives in there right now, just because I know I'm going to run out of time if I don't. Although I probably, if I were doing a long painting, it would be quite a bit of more time before I really started to get into those negatives. So first thing I'm going to do is take the color and put some right in here.
Would you approach them the same way when you're painting planar?
Yeah. They'd probably be sloppier even.
Yeah.
And what I would do, I would save them for last, because the light on these will not change as radically as the light in some of the other areas. So there's a dark behind them at this point. So I'm blue and brown again, right there, blue and brown. Those are my two go-to dark neutrals. And it goes too cold, and just add more brown. And then right back behind these, I want to be a little bit more careful. But I want to keep it impressionistic. I think of a wonderful painting I saw by William Merritt Chase, and he did these, just indicated them so nicely. I mean, John Singer Sargent said it also, where they're not really neat, but they look neat. And that's, I guess, part of when I brought up this thing about be accurate without being precise. That's kind of what I was talking about. These absolutely are not what anybody could call precise, but hopefully they're accurate.
So Chuck Powell wants to know if you talk to yourself about your choices while you're painting for yourself.
Yeah, actually I do. It sounds stupid. Thanks for that question. But I do. I absolutely do. Usually I don't talk to myself as much as I do kind of scold myself.
You're kind of blocking.
I do a lot of this. You knew better than that. Why the hell did you do that? I do a lot of that. Although I have been known to say, hey, I like that, when I hit something that really works. Ooh, I like that. It works. You know, you don't say that often enough because it just doesn't happen often enough. And it's what you want to do is be good. Oh, I had to hold my breath. That's why you didn't talk while I was doing that. Whew. Paint's not going down real nice, so I had to add more terp. And it goes bluer. So I'm going back, I'm adding light blue to that same color because I see it go cooler from about over here. But similar in value. About down to here. And then the same in the bottom. It fades about there. We start to pick up a little bit more down in here, but I've already got a nice color there, so I can pick that up. I can bring that down. So we start to get the feeling of that arc. It's kind of messed up right here, isn't it? You guys see that? So let's fix that. It bothers me. If it bothers you, fix it. If it doesn't bother you, leave it alone. Now, we want to get a little bit of the okay, let's get some of the lights going on behind this. Then we got to go up in here. I got about 20 minutes. So let's see what I can do. Wow, okay. White, Naples yellow, maybe a little cad yellow hue. This is going to be brighter, but you know what? I think it might be kind of cool. Really, we're going to start here. You know, I see a little warmth, so I'm going to put a little bit of warm into it, and let's start right about there.
Oh yeah.
There. I'm using this filbert here, down around. Boom. So what we want to do is make them a little thicker here. Where'd that come from? Get out of there. My stupid fingers got in the way. But you can see how they're bright all of a sudden, you know, and they're very crude as far as refinement goes. But this isn't a refined painting. You know, none of these, by the way, not just this one, anybody that's watched these, none of these are refined paintings. They all hopefully work, but they don't have that refinement that you might do if you were able to go back and put another, you know, 20 hours or even 2 hours into it. And I find, truthfully, for the sake of demonstration purposes, you go much longer than this, 90 minutes. If you go much longer than 90 minutes, I lose people. I mean, I think I do. You know, your true aficionados are going to sit there forever. But also, I want you guys to have lunch. It's not important that I have lunch. I'm on a diet anyway, so. And I was laughing at me. Let's do the top parts right there. Let's just go one by one. See, this is what I was talking about, the tedious. It's not the most fun stuff to watch, but I guess it's important to know that there are areas. You don't just kind of fling your brush around all the time like I do in the beginning. It's like, you know, you got to slow it down.
More control.
And you can see, even though they're not really refined, they tend to work. Perspective is important. And the lower part is right here. And I'm using a pretty big brush here, you guys, just in case you guys are wondering.
What is that?
It's a long bristled filbert. Say that 3 times.
Is that about 4?
Hopefully this will look okay when I'm done. I have no idea because I haven't stepped back for a while.
It looks good from here.
Okay, I got an okay amount.
I'm always too scared to paint those in when we're on location. Too chicken.
I'm not crazy about it, but it's okay. Okay, I got to get a lot more pigment in that. Clean my little finger because I'm shoving that down on here. We've got to hit some brights as it comes down. Also, by the way, if I really screw up in here, which I probably will, but I just won't have the time. I'm just giving you guys a heads up. I'll just go back and fix the positive, meaning the baluster. And I may have to carve him down a little bit. Looks like I've got him a little fat, little bowling pin like. But it's basically effective. And that's kind of what I'm going for right now. Okay, I got him a little on the fat side, don't I? Okay, just don't tell anybody. So you guys aren't there. So if I left him like that, you would automatically, without me telling you, you'd think, well, he did it right. Unless you guys really knew, and then you'd go, man, he messed up. Okay, so let's take a little bit of a liner here, add a few little touches on the bridge. And first thing I'm going to do is right here. And I'm just going to bring a little bit of light right about there. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'll take a little bit of a bigger brush. Let's take the brush I was just using. And let's do, and I want to paint, instead of the top, I want to paint kind of that surface. And the surface below. We'll keep going across. Let's do this part. And if I need to, I'll put that back in. And maybe, well, I've got a little bit of that. We'll put just a hint. I don't want to go quite that light. Right on the top here.
Christopher made a good point. He said he loves your approach to detail. You don't really need that much, just enough to make you focus on.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right.
Rather than the looseness of the rest of
You
it.
should write that down, Chris. Or you already wrote it down? Because you're absolutely right. It's the indication of detail at the end that makes it work. It's not the exactness. And that's why I kept stressing, be accurate without being precise. And that's basically what that's all about there. So the bridge is starting to work, right? Okay, we got to do a few things. I want to give myself the last 5 minutes, but I got to put some stuff up in here. Let's take that little liner while I got it. Mix it down with some other browns, kind of neutral browns. And we get a few little tree branches here and there.
While you're doing that, I'm going to ask a question. Jamie Morris had a question about.
Hey, Jamie.
She's been teaching new painters and how to deal with frustration they express towards not feeling good about what they create. What advice would you give a student who's discouraged
Take a
by
break.
not being as skilled or knowledgeable as they'd like to be when just starting out?
Advice, pick simple subjects.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
We go through this all the time, Jamie. Pick simple subjects. Don't do something that's way beyond you. Paint a beautiful apple. When you can paint a beautiful apple, paint an orange. When you can do an orange,
Paint a lemon.
Get into an avocado. I mean, I'm just using those as examples, but basically that's the key. The key is that, and everyone that paints, they've got to understand that frustration is part of the learning process. Golfers know that. I'm not a good golfer. I never have been and never want to be.
Constantly think of what Dan McCall always said, make frustration your friend.
Absolutely. My longtime friend and wonderful painter, Dan McCall, he coined that line in a little book he wrote. Every artist needs to make frustration their friend. And man, I cannot agree more.
Before you throw the canvas out the window.
And I don't know whether this helps, but it was the same for me. And I'm sure, and I know Jamie, and I know how good Jamie is. And you weren't that good when you started, were you, Jamie? Reiterate that to them. Let them know how long it took you to get to where you are. And I mean, and that was doing a lot of painting because you were in school. And so, I understand it. I completely understand it, and I sympathize with it, truthfully. But I tell everybody this, I'll tell you right now, and people, if you become really good really quickly, I'll be pissed because it took me a long time.
Or angry.
It took me a long time to get to the point where I was painting pictures that I don't want to even say I was proud of, that I was I thought were okay. And, and when you hit that threshold, uh, you can understand that you will get better. I don't know any other way of saying it. It's just your 30th painting will be better than your 5th. And that's probably the best I can do for you. It's just frustration is part of the learning process. I think it probably is in almost anything that you really learn that you want to do well at. I know we have students that want to be good right now, right from the outset. And oh man, it's hard to deal with it. It's very difficult because that it's an impossibility. You cannot be really good right from the outset. You can be pretty good, but I don't know anybody who's ever painted and their first 5 to 10 paintings are pretty impressive. That they can be good, but you're still learning. There's so much to learn in painting. So much. Okay, I'm going to paint a little sky, and I'm going to get into that water a little bit. I think I bumped something, so hopefully I'm going to clean that sky up a little bit, make it a little prettier than it looks in the painting. So I took my radiant blue and white, and we're going to.
You didn't paint that first.
Huh? No, I didn't. But you know why I didn't paint the sky first?
Why?
Because I didn't have much sky.
No.
And I had a huge amount of mass, this big mass here, and I knew even that I didn't get in to the degree that I'd like it to be. So I want to make sure I get these nice kind of interesting edges in here. I think I could be wrong. I think Jamie, are you in Santa Paula? Where's I'm asking? So I'd like to link her up with Bev Laser.
Yeah, sure. Yes, she's teaching in Santa Paula and Ventura.
Okay, good. So we'll let you know when we're going to be down there. Is Gabe's down there too?
Yes.
Good. 2 talented graduates from the academy right there. Jamie Morris and Gabe.
Yeah, Bev's down there and
Bev's in Camarillo.
Conducts the California Art Club.
And she just called me today because she's very involved in the Ventura. I don't know if it's art association or what, but she's very involved in that.
Westlake Art Guild, but they,
So we're gonna get a little bit of this tree in here. Not that I have to have it in there, but I kind of like it breaking that space up a little bit. So that's why I think it's important to put it in. Okay. So far, so good. Now I want to give myself a little bit of time to get into that water because I'm gonna do it with a knife. And before I do, I want to get a little bit of these twigs in here. There's a right there. Okay. Any others? Little sky holes I see here and there. Maybe I'll put them in just a little bit. I kind of like it breaks up some of the space. Okay. And one more thing, and then we do the water. And that is, I see a beautiful tree trunk. God, I sound like Bob Ross. Beautiful tree trunk. Right here. And there's a tad of light on it, just a little bit as it goes down. Right about, well, I said a little bit, and look what I did. So what do you do? When it's wrong, you fix it. Just push it back. That's wet paint. There you go. Kind of sits back in there now. All right. I'm going to pick up my palette knife if I can find it. Here it is. This is what I'm going to use. Small one. Got to kind of make sure my edges are kind of clean. Going to pick up a lot of white. And no, I have plenty of white. I'm looking solvent-free gel. Didn't squeeze out, but I've got some out now. Solvent-free gel and white, and a little bit of blue because the foreground lights, we have some light activity, and the foreground part is very blue. So I mix some blue into that color, some light blue. I prefer the light blue over the radiant, just because radiant is a little bit shiny. In fact, I might throw a little ultramarine into that. Yeah, I'm going to. Okay. And we're going to put a little bit more ultramarine. That was a little lighter than I wanted, but that's kind of the stroke I want. Use a knife because it hits and misses the canvas. A little bit more ultramarine blue. A little bit more. I keep adding it. It doesn't go quite as light as I think it should. So we're going to a little bit more light in here. Kind of hits and misses as it goes up. Get a little bit off to the right side. Right in here.
I'm just curious, why did you choose that size knife? Wouldn't you?
Because this larger? I can use this and make a thick stroke, or I can use this and make a thin stroke. You can with the larger ones too. I could have used a larger one. Since I don't paint a lot with a palette knife, I usually use it for effects. Compared to Carolyn Meyer, who's a wonderful painter that uses palette knife beautifully. I'm going to I get a little bit of warm reflection, and that's too light. So what I want to do, but I kind of like the stroke a lot. Actually, I like the stroke. I think the stroke worked. Shocked me when it worked that well.
Sandy Fisher had a question about, you probably have addressed this before, but what light or lights do you recommend for a studio easel? Oh,
natural white light, if you can get it. And fluorescent, the natural white. You can use, I have a lot of daylight in here. It's a little cooler. The natural white is really good. I have kind of a combination of the two.
The balanced one.
Yeah. And I have them equally spaced in my studio, about 450 square feet in the studio. And they're spaced pretty much. I have 3 units with 4 lights per unit.
Oh.
So we're going to go right in here. We're going to hit, I darkened this quite a bit, by the way, with a little bit more blue. Shoot, I'm over time. I still haven't hit my lights in.
Oh, gosh.
Okay, I'm going to go faster.
Sorry, I kind of went going on. Okay. Time goes by too quickly.
You're excused if you guys want to go.
You're excused. What do you paint? What are you painting on? Moses wants to know.
What?
Moses?
What did you say?
Moses wants to know what surface you're painting on.
I'm painting on a piece of hardboard. This probably was a mistake. I probably would have been better on canvas, but I chose hardboard. I just think it would have been, I keep adding darker, more color to this. It's just a feeling. That's working okay. If I just stood back, it feels pretty good. Doesn't feel great, feels pretty good. Pretty good is what I hope for in a painting like this, because I know I'm not going to have time to make it stellar unless I get lucky. It's a little warm from underneath that boat. Any other place, all the way over here. Take the blue, bring it about there. Now, let's get the lights in. And it's pretty white back in here, right in here. All right, so I'm going to take, I already have the white. I brought it down earlier. Not in the day, just earlier, a little bit ago. I'm going to take, I've got still some of that blue in there. And I'm going to mix that in 2 tones. Feel like name that tune. I can fix that in 2 tones. Nope, feel like I can fix that in 5 passes. There's one. It's a little on the blue side, but it's lighter. Hopefully you guys can see what the knife allows you to get with it. Now I'm going to take that same color and I'm going to add more white and more yellow. And we're going to come from right there. It's almost the same as that, which is really what I wanted. It's going to be brighter, thicker. Gets a little cooler, so I'm switching back to the blue. There's that blue color. And I actually see some worms down in there too. And so if I can, I will sneak those in. Show you what I mean. We take a little bit of can orange, a little bit of yellow, a little bit of white, set it off to the side. Probably a little brighter than I wanted, but beggars can't be choosers right now. So I'm gonna and mix this to blue, to yellow, to and if I need to, come in with a little bit of a dark color here and there. A little warm maybe. Let's see what this does. I picked up almost those pinks.
Would you come back into that with a brush if you felt like you wanted to?
I think I'm gonna right now. Who asked that question?
Me.
Okay. Yes, I would. And that's what I'm gonna do right now. You go back and forth until it works.
We're kind of on overtime here.
Yeah, we're a little overtime, guys. That's a little too strong right there. So what you do in that case is go back to that watercolor, mix it up, and pull over a little bit here and there. And you go back and forth with the knife, the brush, the knife, the brush, until you get the mixture and the look that you're after. You go too far with one, you go back with the other. Pull this down right at the end. Little bright spots. I was just noticing that the Bowie is about as bright as the light on the water. And that's, so now I go back and push almost what I said. Sometimes I actually do what I practice, what I preach. We're just about there. So I will probably do a little touch up on it like I usually do. Usually go back, spend 15 minutes or so. Don't like to overdo these things just because there's a certain amount of integrity in a plein air piece because it's done alla prima, all in one shot, in one setting. And I always feel like go back and work. I'm kind of violent. So I don't, somebody asked me a question a couple of days ago if I go back into my plein air work into the studio, and occasionally I do, but literally if I go back into it, it's not more than 10 minutes worth of work. And most of the time I don't do that. Felt like it needed a little light because I've got all this light up here on there. I think we're just about where I want to be, at least for a big, large quickie. We can probably go and put some of the fronds, tree branches back, overlap. So
okay.
I think we're about there. Don't have much more to add to this other than hopefully I can touch it up in the next 15 minutes. Actually, I think I'll take a break. I got to get away from it because one of the things, plein air painting, one last thing. Those of you, as you're going to plein air paint, get back from your painting about every 5 minutes. Don't sit there because you will discover things as you stand back that you will not see up close. I cannot stress that enough. Get back because it'll really, geez, I sound like Paul McCartney. It'll make a big difference in your painting. And I think you make your judgments. Last words of wisdom. You ready for this?
Yes.
It's something that I've said before, so it's not, I don't know if I've said it here in this setting. I like to say, paint from here, judge it from there. So you do all your painting, you get back, you judge it, you go, well, that's not working. I gotta fix this, I gotta fix that. But all of your decisions are made from a distance. Your painting is made close up. And with that, I'm gonna bounce off for a little bit. I'll probably come back and do a little bit more work in here. I can see a little bit more in here, kind of like what's happening here, but it isn't quite there. Maybe chop this up a little bit more as we get down into the water. But for all intents and purposes, it's kind of where I wanted it to be.
Look at the palette.
Yeah, you want to see my palette?
Which is a big mess. Whoa. Whoa.
Palettes are usually kind of but Putt used to say palettes are the poetry. That's the poetry, that's the painting.
Yeah.
So hopefully you guys can make some sense out of what I did. It's got the potential. I'm looking at it from a distance for the first time, and all I can say is it's got the potential. Is it there? In my opinion, no. But the bones are there, the basis.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Tim. Thanks for your patience.
Happy painting, everyone.
Okay. Ciao, ciao.